In this video, we're going to learn about special products of polynomials. So we're still multiplying, because that's what products mean, is multiplying polynomials. But these are special cases that you're going to want to be able to recognize. So this is Module 9, Lesson 3 for my students. We're still dealing with the same benchmark: add, subtract, and multiply polynomial expressions with rational number coefficients. And this is the warm-up for today, for this lesson. All right, so the square of a sum, that's the square of a plus b, is the square of a plus twice the product of a and b plus the square of b. So what this is saying is that if I have a plus b squared, it is equal to a plus b multiplied by a plus b. So a binomial times a binomial. Now what happens here is that we end up getting this middle term, or our b term in a quadratic, but the middle term, because we have ab and we have ab, that resulted from multiplying b times a and a times b. So our middle term here is positive. And we can't forget the middle term, because that's a lot of times what happens is students look at this a plus b squared, and instead of multiplying a binomial times a binomial, they try to distribute that square instead, and they try to convince me or others that the answer is actually a squared plus b squared. But that is not the case, because then we wouldn't have our middle term where we had to multiply a times b and a times b here. So let's look at some examples. When I multiply x plus 6 times x plus 6, notice that I'm going to set it up on my area model, and then I'm going to fill in the boxes. So x times x is x squared, 6 times x is 6x, x times 6 is also 6x, and then 6 times 6 is 36. So notice that I have a middle term here, and it's going to be 12x. That's why it says it is a plus twice the product of a and b plus the square of b. So here we have 2x plus 4 squared. What we're going to do is we're going to set it up using our area model. We are not going to try to just distribute that square, because it doesn't work mathematically. Because remember, we have to do, when we follow our order of operations, we have to simplify the parentheses first. Well, we can't simplify these parentheses, so that means we have to multiply all the terms. Okay, so 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times 4 is a positive 8x. 4 times 2x is another positive 8x. And 4 times 4 is a positive 16. So again, it's twice the product of a and b. So it's going to be 16x. Okay. Now, if we have a square of a difference, that's when we have a minus b. So that is the square of a minus twice the product of a and b plus the square of b. So the only thing that changed from the square of a sum to the square of a difference is now my b term, my middle term, is now negative. The b squared term is still positive, because a negative b multiplied by a negative b will give me a positive b squared. So let's look at this first example. We have x minus 5 squared. So I'm going to set up x minus 5 outside the area model, multiply by x minus 5 on the top. When I fill in the boxes, I get a negative 5x, and when I add another negative 5x, I get a negative 10x. Again, it's minus twice the product of a and b. So 1 times 5 is 5. 5 times 2 is negative 10. Negative 5 times 2. Sorry. So now I have 4x minus 7. So when I set it up using my area model, 4 times 4 is 16x squared. 4 times negative 7 is negative 28x. Negative 7 times 4x is negative 28x. And negative 7 times negative 7 is a positive 49. Again, twice the product of a and b is my middle term. So negative 28x minus 28x, or negative 28 times 2. And I'm going to have a negative 56x is my middle term. All right, finally, we have my favorite, which is the product of a sum and a difference. So the product of A and B, A plus B, and A minus B is the square of A minus the square of B. So what happens here is that our middle term cancels out. So it goes away because we have a positive AB and a negative AB. And when I combine those two, I get 0. So the middle term cancels out. So there will not be a middle term. Now you'll notice our B term is negative, and the reason why our B squared term is negative is because I had a positive B, multiplied it by a negative B, which gave me a negative B squared. So let's do some examples. We have x plus 8 multiplied by x minus 8. So I'm going to set it up outside my area model. I get x squared plus 8x minus 8x minus 64. Notice that the positive 8x and the negative 8x are going to become 0. So my final answer is x squared minus 64. Again, this last term is now negative because I had a positive times a negative. Okay, now I have 3y squared plus 4, and I'm going to have 3y squared minus 4. So I get a positive 9y to the 4th, positive 12y squared minus 12y squared, and then a negative 16, because a positive 4 times a negative 4 gives me a negative 16. That will cancel out, and my final answer is 9y to the power of 4 minus 16. Now, the purpose of learning these different special products of polynomials is so that we are able to recognize them in the future when we need to factor them. Okay, so this is your practice, just a real quick 6-question practice for you to build these skills and start to recognize the patterns. And that's it for this lesson. Have a good day.